Okay, welcome everyone to today's 10th Gateway House weekly webinar. Our topic today is post-COVID Mumbai, governance, planning and realignment. And we have two really special guests who are both at the forefront of Mumbai's fight against COVID-19. Pankaj Joshi is not only the executive director of UDRI, which does a lot of work in helping the city stakeholders have a voice in urban planning issues that will impact them, but he himself is an urban planner, designer, and an architect. So he's going to share his insights from his experience in fighting the pandemic and how we as a city need to reassess our urban planning paradigms to prepare ourselves better for the next health or climate emergency. My second guest is Nitai Mehta, the founder of Praja Foundation, that does a lot of work in the city governance space. Ever since the lockdown began, Praja has also been distributing food to all those people who have been made destitute by the pandemic. Nitai will tell us from his experience the changes that need to be made in city governance in order to make our city not just resilient to these emergencies, but also more humane. So welcome Pankaj, welcome Nitai. Yeah. Pankaj, let's start with you. You have been helping the state and city government on the ground in its fight against COVID. What do you see in the field from your perspective as an urban planner, designer, and architect? Can there be some kind of immediate changes made on the ground that can help our city?
Yeah. See, if you just kind of look at this current pandemic, this is the kind of a weird thing where you have a particular virus which is brought in through a mechanism where people have been traveling abroad. It's come through middle class and upper middle class, and then finally it's arrested now with the urban poor. So it's like something which middle class and rich has eventually given poor something. So that's like, if you paraphrase what's happening in the city now. What is happening right now is that there's a substantial larger health infrastructure and apparatus which is set up in every ward, and there are fewer clinics because we were looking at BDD, Worli, we were looking at areas in Andheri where you had the informal settlements. The fewer clinics are working quite effectively, and the if it was a wish list, then the first thing on the wish list would be to kind of continue this fewer clinics all year round, so people with minor ailments don't end up with pneumonia and come into general hospitals. So I think if that would be something which can happen post COVID also, it will definitely run through the monsoon. But if this happens all year round, the public health kind of nature of public health responses would be substantially different in the city. So that would be the first thing which we would really want it to be seen in the city, where the primary health infrastructure is extremely weak, especially in informal housing, as well as Koiwada, Gauthan, Adivasi Padas. And if the fewer clinics remain operational, it will be useful. The second thing which we find is that there, once we open up effectively, there will have to be very simple yet effective changes with the way we kind of work, live, and move. And in terms of moving, that is in terms of transportation, the softest form of intervention would be to completely stagger the volumes. And instead of kind of concentrating on peak hours between 8 to 10, if we can stretch it from 6 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock in the noon, and then stretch it further in the evening, we can virtually kind of stagger the complete uh, travel crowding over a substantially larger period of time, and it would greatly help in reducing interaction, also the spread. So that is something which will require substantial amount of cooperation from the corporates as well, where they allow these kind of flexi timings for all their staff, and so that there's a small overlap between people coming at different time.
Right.
In terms of hard infrastructure, I think railways have a particular kind of Okay, oh, there's some message. Sorry. Railways have a particular role to play because they are not operational now. Mumbai would not start until railways start, and I think this is the time railways, that would be the Western Railways, Central Railway, as well as Harbour, take up this initiative to set up a hard infrastructure to kind of regulate crowds into railway stations and further boarding the trains. So, that will be a huge task, but you will have to really look at how do we do when we open up railways, because that's the only way uh, uh, the city is kind of going to open up. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. The thing is, when it comes to street crowding, and where we are really kind of having a problem is in areas where you really cannot avoid crowds on street. But the real problem which we see is when it comes to indoor crowding, and when we were looking at chawls and slums in the suburbs, we find that the most amount of transmission is happening due to poor sanitation. So, the time where everybody kind of comes together is in the morning when they have to use the toilets. And even though there are 10, 12 people in the room, they are pretty, well managed. But in terms of handling those uh, sanitation timings, is becoming a serious problem in most slum stalls. And if you look at most of the containment areas as well as buildings which are sealed up, most of the urban typology which are vulnerable are the ones which have common toilets. So essentially, that is something which we need to take as the first priority post COVID, to set up sanitation infrastructure adequate. The best thing would be every household has a toilet of its own, or at least we can kind of uh, bring in infrastructure which is multi-family units which can share, like few families can share one toilet, so at least hygiene is maintained and we don't find this kind of spread happening easily. The serious issue which we are actually kind of seeing is that the current I think planning discourse is talking about densities, and I think densities are the reason why we are finding such a serious problem, and I don't think that is completely kind of the right thing. And most of it is happening through some anecdotal data that we have. If you're really going to kind of pin a particular problem, we'll have to look at typologies, we'll have to look at patterns of sanitation, we'll have to look at everything which relates to a settlement. And we cannot just say that because they're dense and because they are poor, they are areas which are kind of breeding diseases. So I think we'll have to move beyond anecdotal data. I'm just reflecting to the kind of media statements which are coming. Dharavi is much sparser than several other settlements in Mumbai, and just few kilometers away, Berampada is maybe twice as much density as Dharavi is. So I think we need to kind of move beyond impressionistic kind of figures which media would like to kind of pounce on, and look at real serious issues with each of the settlements. So I think the concern will come back to informal settlements eventually. So how do we really look at kind of dealing with not just density but also issues of sanitation, issues of public health, issues of nutrition, and issues of education in the settlement would be the key in the post COVID scenario.
Okay, Pankaj, hold that thought because I've got a few questions on that, and I'm sure my audience will have it too. But Nitai, even you have been really on the ground in this fight. And from the governance point of view, do you think there's some kind of emergency mandate that can be given to the city government and city officials to be more effective in fighting the pandemic?
Yeah, as a principle, this is something that we should always look at, is that we should have a decentralized system of dealing with issues and situations. What we at Raja have been really working at is looking at a process or a system which decentralizes the powers. It devolves powers to the local elected representatives. And especially in a crisis like this, you need to devolve power and build a rapport with the elected representatives at the local level, local NGOs, citizens groups, and other administrative officials who are working at the local level. And they are the ones who actually are dealing with the situation at the grassroots. They are the ones who know where the problem actually lies. So as a principle, you really need to look at devolution of powers in the long run. And something that is urgently required is to empower people at the local level to actually be able to do things at the, so you can't wait for somebody from Mantralaya to say to you that, okay, you need to get this done or get this work done. And these are things that are critical, that the decisions are done at the local level. So as a principle, we should really look at devolving and having a decentralized system of functioning, especially in times of crisis.
Nitai, can you sort of just give us some kind of a granular example, like in today's COVID time, what kind of power would you like to see given to, say, the local representative or the city official, which can help them be more effective?
So I think there are a couple of things that can be done, or those should be done, is to interact more with the local elected representatives, interact more with the local NGOs who know what is the ground reality, who know where there is a need for example, in the early stages, where were the migrant workers? How can we get the food to them? How can we get dry ration to them? How can we? Where is there a potential of flaring up of the coronavirus? And involving elected representatives as well as, and not just only elected representatives, but people from the various political parties, because they are the ones who are on the ground. They know their people very well and they know their constituents very well. That's number one. Number two is also local NGOs who have been working there. If they were taken into confidence on in trying to work with reaching out to people at a granular level, we could have perhaps been much more effective to see that our resources are actually given to the right people.
Okay. Now, recently, both of you all participated in the Gateway House Shanghai Institute of International Studies webinar and rather roundtable on COVID and post-COVID learnings in governance, urban planning, and raising funds for cities. Now, after the brainstorming that we had, are there some kind of takeaways that both of you all felt could be implemented in Mumbai? Just any one takeaway or two takeaways. Pankaj, would you like to go first?
Yeah. So one thing which we were also researching before we went on to the webinar was that most Chinese cities were not passively reacting to the infection, but they were extremely aggressive in going after the infection. So they actually kind of pushed the virus out. And what we seem to be doing is more reactive. We are not aggressively testing, we are not aggressively containing, we are not making each of the containment zones watertight. And the thing which seemed to have worked in their case seems to be the aggression with which they kind of pursued this infection or pursued the virus. And somehow we, with our porous containment and all, have not been able to still get a hang of it. So I think it would be really interesting to see if the state and the local authority aggressively pursues every containment and every case which every contact which has come in their kind of notice, and sees that it's isolated, because otherwise I don't really see that we will get a hang of the situation very soon.
Nitai, would you like to take a go at that one?
Yeah, as we talk about post-COVID, what are the lessons we're learning? I come back to my topic of devolution of power and devolution of urban governance, in the sense that we have seen in the last so many years that the power is still controlled at the state level. It has not been devolved to the local level. Even with the 74th Amendment of the Constitution, which devolves power, 18 functions to the local level, that has really not happened. And you can take examples of places where actually power is devolved and there is a very strong local administration and local government functioning. The situation has not been that bad. I mean, you take a classic case like Kerala. you will see what has happened out there, that the local administration, the local elected representative, and the whole groups of people who work at the local level, that is NGOs and citizens group who work at the ward level, are able to tackle these issues in a much better manner, whether there's contact tracing, whether there is understanding where the clinics are, where what can be done, information flows very clearly in a direction towards up and down, and upwards and downwards, all the information flows. I think this is something that we should learn, that we should be actually working towards reforming our urban governance in a very aggressive manner now, and this is the time to do it. As a crisis, we really need to look at, learn from this crisis and look at proper devolution of power to the local level, which will not only, it's not just the corona crisis, it is a crisis of other things, whether it's public health, whether it's education, whether it's other things. You let people at the local level decide what is right for them and create a network and a whole system which can respond to emergencies and situations. Here, what is happening is that we are firefighting. We don't know what to do. We run out here, there's somebody somewhere will say, do this work out here, or do this, there's a problem out there. If we had already had a system which was in place, which had given powers at the local level, we would perhaps not have seen the issues that we are seeing now in Mumbai and other large cities.
Okay, Nitai, taking you up from there, is there any particular Indian city that you feel has really fought the virus or put their containment and isolation SOPs in place strictly and really sort of, stop the virus in its track? Is there any Indian city or state, for that matter, that you'd like to?
Well, I think there are many cities who have been able to tackle this thing. There is a district like Bhilwara district in Rajasthan, which has been able to tackle this quite well. There are cities like, surprisingly, city like Bangalore that has been able to tackle that. But the most promising, the best performing in this sense is Kerala as a state. I think that is a place that, as I said, has been able to tackle this and do the contact tracing, treatments, getting to know where the problem lies immediately, responding to the problem immediately. I think we should take a page out of what Kerala has done, and that basically what they have done is they have evolved the powers at the local level, and that is something that is critical. And decision-making authorities has been given at the local level.
Pankaj, I'd like to come back to you. Is once we start reopening properly, after this COVID experience and what you have seen on the ground, what are the three things that the city and state government must undertake on a war footing to make Mumbai more resilient and a more healthier city?
I think three things which come very clearly is that we definitely need to invest substantially in a public health system. I think the primary healthcare is completely kind of in shambles. So I think we definitely need to look at that primary healthcare infrastructure in the city. Second thing is clearly our disaster response, because I think more and more we are going to see environmental disasters, health disasters and all. So the disaster response needs to have a permanent form. It cannot be just one disaster management control room, but at every ward level, there needs to be substantial infrastructure to deal with any form of disaster. And that needs to be a vertical in municipal corporation, like we have verticals on engineering, we have verticals on education and health. We need a disaster preparedness as well as disaster response vertical in municipal corporation, and which should be all year round, setting up enough infrastructure which can be deployed at a very short period of time. And third, but something which needs to be done on medium term, long term, is to look at our planning principles and objectives. Do we have adequate open spaces? Do we have adequate hospitals? If you're looking in all parameters, we are not even 1/4 of the national standard. I'm not talking about, any other city or any other country. Even if you look at the National Building Code or Urban and Regional Development Plans formulation implementation guideline, we are a small fraction of that. And we have, in fact, very consciously decided that Mumbai will have only a fraction of the infrastructure which a standard provides for in India. So I think we want to kind of aspire to become a global city, but we have planning standards regarding open spaces, regarding health, regarding education, which is fraction of even Indian standards. So I think the third thing which we need to kind of clearly re-look at is what are the standards which we are aspiring to kind of get into the city, and how do we really execute and implement things like the regional plan, the development plan, and all other processes which lead towards a successful implementation of these standards.
Okay. Nitai, the last question is for you. A very, very quick, pointed answer is, given your experience after the pandemic, do you think, are there any specific powers that need to be devolved to our city governments in order to make our city more responsive to emergencies?
So I think there are
A climate emergency and a health emergency like this pandemic.
sure. The thing is that emergencies come at any time. There's not something that can, we can predict an emergency. But the thing is that we should always be prepared of resolving issues that may come up. And that what we're looking at is what Praja is working on is called transforming urban governance. What we really believe what needs to be done to tackle emergencies at a local level and a level that can be tackled in a more aggressive and better manner. What you really need to do is two important things. One is you need to devolve, as I've been repeating, devolve power to the local elected representatives, have a empowered mayor, have empowered elected representatives. They should have the authority of taking decisions of planning and other things at the local level. Secondly, they should have financial autonomy so that whatever they plan to do is something that they can really do that work. The government of India had, as I said, in 1992, looked at the 74th Amendment, which looked at devolution of power, where 18 functions were supposed to be right from planning to economic development to water to roads to sanitation to primary health to education is all supposed to have been devolved to the local government to make that function at the local level. That has not happened in India. And that is something, and very few states have actually implemented it aggressively. The second thing is, and which I think is most critical, is actually bringing democracy to our grassroots level, at the local level. Our problem has been that we have restricted our democratic this thing to the center and the state. And an empowered mayor, an empowered elected representative is not existing. The mayor cannot decide what needs to be done for the city. An elected representative, municipal councillors cannot decide what is required for his thing, but he is dependent on the municipal commissioner and the state for getting things done. This needs to change. We need to look at empowerment of the elected representative and more participation of the citizens at the local level. This needs to really happen. These two things need to happen: devolution of powers and bringing democracy at the grassroots level. We call ourselves the world's largest democracy, but it's still at the central level and the state level, not at the local level.
Okay.